You probably saw the headline already. One of the Chiefs' physical playmakers drew the league's attention after Week 13, and the NFL handed down a tidy fine. Running back Isaiah Pacheco, who's been one of Patrick Mahomes' most consistent running partners, was fined $46,371 for what the league labeled unnecessary roughness and use of the helmet during the Chiefs' game against the Cowboys. That happened in the third quarter, and the punishment showed up on the league's Week 13 discipline list. It's the highest fine anyone received that week, and it's not the kind of distraction you want with a huge Arrowhead showdown coming up. This matters for two big reasons. One, when your season is teetering, as the Chiefs are sitting around 500 and every game counts, any player availability, focus, or penalty reputation can tilt things. And two, fines like this indicate the league thinks the action crossed the line, which could influence how referees and the NFL office view similar plays. Going forward, you should expect the coaches to address this in a couple of ways: a frank locker room conversation about technique and timing, and potentially a reminder from the staff to avoid plays that risk further discipline or injury. That doesn't mean the player won't play. Fines are financial punishments, not suspensions in this case. But it does mean there's a reputational and tactical cost to the team when one of your core pieces gets flagged by the league. If you're watching the Texans game, keep an eye on how physical the Chiefs stay in the running game and whether they adjust contact technique in obvious ways. Before we go deeper, hit subscribe and help us get to 6,000 subscribers, and drop a like if you want more quick break Chiefs updates like this. Then vote in the poll. Will this fine change how the player plays this week? Yes or no? When you go back and look at the Week 13 sequence that drew the league's attention, it becomes clearer why the NFL landed on a helmet use and unnecessary roughness fine. The play itself wasn't one of those long, dramatic moments you see clipped all over social media, but rather a burst of the exact energy that makes Isaiah Pacheco who he is. Violent acceleration, lowered pads, and a finish-through contact mindset. The league, however, continues to be extremely firm on any action that looks like forcible helmet use, even when it's part of what a running back naturally does, finishing a run. According to the NFL's Week 13 discipline report, Pacheco's fine fell under the category of impermissible helmet contact combined with unnecessary roughness. And because it was deemed significant enough, it was placed among the highest fines issued that week. If you've followed how these calls have been handled this season, the league has been consistent, even if the application sometimes frustrates fans. Helmet-first contact from a ball carrier, even in a split-second situation, often draws attention because the league wants one thing above all else: to remove any play that looks like it can escalate into head or neck risk. Whether you or I agree with the consistency of these calls doesn't change that the NFL is leaning toward the strict side. For running backs, it's a tightrope. You're taught your entire life to win leverage with pad level, but at the pro level, that technique can become a fine if the head appears to be the first point of force. As for reaction, the Chiefs themselves have kept things quiet, publicly, which is typical when a fine doesn't change a player's on-field status for the upcoming week. Andy Reid rarely creates waves over officiating or discipline unless it involves a suspension or a repeat offender situation, and Pacheco is not in that category. But inside the building, you can bet this sparked some internal talk about technique. Running backs coaches usually pull clips from the All-22 film and show the player exactly where the league views the launch point and initial contact zone of the helmet. It's not about changing who the runner is. It's about making sure technique adjustments prevent future flags at critical moments in a tight season. There's also the psychological side you have to weigh. Players respond differently to fines. Some shrug it off as part of the job. Some tighten up for a week or two. Others come out even more determined, but with a smarter approach. Pacheco, who plays with one of the highest motors in the league, is the type of competitor who channels things immediately into the next snap. But anytime the league officially labels one of your plays as unsafe or unnecessary, referees take note. In close games, like the one looming against Houston, that can impact borderline calls. So what's the lesson here? It's not that the Chiefs need Pacheco to become passive. It's that they need controlled aggression, the same speed, the same finishing power, but without giving officiating crews a reason to scan him more closely. When you're 6-6 and every margin is razor-thin, you can't invite attention you don't need. Before we move on, tell me this in the comments. Which past helmet use or unnecessary roughness fine around the league do you think was the worst call? And while you're here, make sure you're subscribed to help us get to 6,000 and hit the like button so YouTube keeps pushing Chiefs content to more fans. Now let's talk about the part that really matters for you as a Chiefs fan. How this fine actually affects the team heading into a must-win matchup. Because on paper, a $46,371 penalty doesn't change the depth chart. It doesn't force the coaching staff to bench anyone. It doesn't alter the injury report. But the ripple effects inside the building, inside film study, and inside the weekly game plan? Those absolutely matter, especially for a team that no longer has the luxury of margin for error. Start with discipline and reputation, because the NFL absolutely tracks both. When a player gets hit with one of the league's larger weekly fines, that data point doesn't disappear. It's part of a weekly officiating packet that crews review before assignments. Referees heading into Chiefs-Texans won't officiate based on the fine alone, but they will be aware of who drew helmet-related attention the week before. And that awareness can show up in 50-50 moments, the kind of subtle contact in a pile that, depending on the crew, becomes either a non-call or a drive-changing 15-yard flag. The Chiefs have already lost multiple possessions this season because of preventable penalties. And that's why something like this becomes more than just a monetary punishment. From a roster standpoint, nothing changes with Pacheco's availability, and that's the good news. The Chiefs still lean on him heavily, and with the offense sputtering at times, he remains one of the few players who consistently brings both juice and reliability in tough yardage situations. But internally, coaches have to address a simple reality. This team's margin for error is thin. Every unnecessary penalty, every moment where technique slips, every play that invites league scrutiny, directly affects how long the offense stays on the field. With a Texans team that can score in bursts, losing even one possession could be the difference between climbing back over 500 and sliding further behind in the playoff race. And make no mistake, Kansas City needs the run game right now. Not as a luxury, not as a supplement, but as a stabilizer. Against Houston, you need controlled physicality. The Texans' defensive front is aggressive and opportunistic. They thrive on chaos. If the Chiefs' running game comes out disciplined, downhill, and technically clean, it keeps the Texans' rush honest and opens up the middle of the field for Mahomes. If it devolves into over-amped contact or sloppy pad-level moments, the game becomes harder than it needs to be. This is where coaching details matter. Expect the Chiefs to emphasize certain run concepts that reduce helmet-first risk, more inside zone, more counter with pullers widening lanes, and fewer tight-space collision points that force a runner to lower his head out of instinct. You'll also see emphasis on finishing with shoulders, not crown tilt. These aren't dramatic changes. They're micro-adjustments designed to stay aggressive without stepping over the league's line. Coaches break these down in slow motion during the week, and players absorb more than fans realize, especially in a week where a fine is fresh. Another factor you should watch is how the Texans defend early downs. If Houston begins loading the box or baiting Kansas City into heavy contact situations, that will test both discipline and patience. The Chiefs must avoid getting drawn into physical traps where defenders intentionally leverage angles that make offensive players look like the initiators of dangerous contact. Smart teams do this. Houston is one of them. Kansas City cannot fall for it. There's also the psychology of the locker room. A fine like this doesn't fracture anything. Pacheco is well liked and respected, but it does spark conversations about accountability. Championship teams handle these moments by reinforcing standards, not by calling out individuals. And because veterans like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and Chris Jones already hold this locker room together, the fine ends up becoming a teaching moment rather than a distraction. Now let me ask you this, because your opinion actually shapes how I build upcoming chapters. Should the Chiefs shift the game plan to protect themselves from future penalties? Or should they keep the same aggressive identity and trust the technique will catch up? Comment below with one word: conservative or aggressive. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and help us push toward 6,000 subscribers so we can keep growing this community of informed Chiefs fans. As you head into Sunday night, here's the big picture. This fine is not about the money. It's about the message, both from the league and inside the Chiefs' own building. You're at a point in the season where every possession, every decision, every moment of discipline directly feeds into whether Kansas City climbs back into control of its playoff future or drifts toward a finish nobody expected back in September. That means a fine tied to unnecessary roughness matters, because it highlights exactly where the Chiefs have struggled this year. Avoidable mistakes, timing issues, and moments where passion crosses into risk. Against the Texans, the margin is even thinner. Houston isn't going to hand over yards. They won't give you easy drives. They play fast, physical, and opportunistic football. And they've got enough young energy on both sides of the ball to flip momentum in 2 snaps. If the Chiefs repeat the kind of contact that triggered this fine, or if referees sense the same patterns early, Kansas City could find itself gifting Houston short fields or extending drives the defense had already won. That's how games slip away, especially in December. So what should you watch for? First, look at how the Chiefs start the game. If the opening series features smart pad level, clean contact, and technical runs from Pacheco, that's a sign the coaching staff's corrections took hold. Second, monitor whether the offense maintains balance. When the Chiefs run with control and purpose, it forces defenses to respect every layer of the field. Third, pay attention to the sideline demeanor. This team usually responds well when adversity hits early, and if they stay calm, they'll stay in the game. Finally, remember this: discipline doesn't mean losing your edge, it means sharpening it. The Chiefs don't need to become cautious, they need to become precise. Because when Kansas City plays clean, connected, and focused football, they're still one of the hardest teams to beat in the NFL, regardless of record, noise, or weekly drama. And Sunday night is the perfect opportunity to remind the league of that. Before you go, drop your game prediction in the comments. Give me a final score and who you think makes the biggest play of the night. And if you love getting these no-fluff updates and breakdowns, hit subscribe and help us climb to 6,000 subscribers. Then throw a like on the video so the algorithm knows Chiefs Kingdom is still here and still loud.